In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, we are glad to have you, Your Excellency, the United Nations Secretary General here in Palestine, for you are always appreciated, respected, and welcomed in our country. And on the occasion of your visit to Palestine, and in light of your service to the United Nations ending soon, as well as in acknowledgement and appreciation of your illustrious and renowned international diplomatic career, it has been my great honor to having decorated you with the Grand Cordon of the State of Palestine. We are eager to see an end to long decades of historical injustice, and we look forward to exercise our right to self-determination by implementing relevant United Nations and international resolutions and the Land for Peace proposition and the unamended Arab Peace Initiative. I have explained to His Excellency, the Secretary General, that our hands shall always remain extended for peace, based on the two-state solution along the 1967 borders. However, the problem is the continued Israeli occupation and settlement construction, which are both antithesis to the desired peace. Here we say that whoever seeks the two-state solution must stop and refrain from creating fait accompli situations that render it unsolvable and unviable, which will further worsen the conflict and cause additional sentiments of despair and frustration amongst our people, and also give proponents of terrorism and extremism in our region and in the world. I have also discussed with His Excellency the Secretary General the importance of supporting and promoting the French Peace Initiative and the Arab and international efforts and the quartet efforts as well, conducive to the holding and organization of the Peace Convention before the end of this year, and the necessity also to establish a timelined mechanism, clearly timelined mechanism for negotiations and peace talk, and to implement the action points and deliverables and outcomes of such convention in order to establish the independent Palestinian state along the borders of 1967 with its capital, with Jerusalem as its capital, and solve the final status issues, the entire final status issues, on top of which are the refugees and prisoners. Now, over 7,000 prisoners are still held in Israeli prisons, and we have reaffirmed to His Excellency that we reject provisional and interim solutions and a state with provisional borders. Here, I would like also to note and acknowledge the role of the United Nations with all its agencies and other bodies which have largely contributed in instilling the rights of the Palestinian people for 70 years now. We also highly value the role of UNRWA, which has been taking a humanitarian role that we deem very important to our people. And now, as we are an observer state in the United Nations and a full member in many of international treaties, conventions, and organizations, we will push ahead with our efforts to concede to more treaties, conventions, and join more organizations in order to assist us in building the capacity of our institutions and instill the rule of law and order, and to uphold human rights in accordance with international standards, and to establish the presence of the State of Palestine in international fora. In this context, we would like to acknowledge the distinguished efforts of His Excellency, the Secretary General, and the working staff in preparing a legal study to survey the legal study to provide protection for the Palestinian people. And we stress the importance of taking practical practical steps regarding the responsibility of the National Council and the General, the Secretary General in this context. I would like to thank His Excellency Secretary General for receiving the Badran family who lost their toddler Mahmoud, 15 years of age, and his injured siblings who were shot by the Israeli forces. And this is only a small part of the suffering and of the calamity of the Palestinian people. I have also briefed His Excellency on our efforts to unify our people and our land, and that we are determined to reach national unity and national accord, and we will head to legislative and presidential elections as soon as possible, and we will continue to seek to try to lift the blockade on Gaza and to promote the efforts to reconstruct it, including infrastructure, electricity, and water treatment. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate my expression of deepest appreciation and acknowledgement and respect of Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, and his sublime efforts in leading the esteemed organization of the United Nations and its agencies. And we look forward for your continued and increased efforts, as well as those of the UN in general, in order to serve justice to our people and enable them to achieve their freedom and independence. I greet you, Your Excellency, and I welcome you again, hoping that you enjoy everlasting health, happiness, and welcome again.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, and Foreign Minister, distinguished senior government officials of State of Palestine, ladies and gentlemen of the media, Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Kareem. Good evening. It's a great pleasure for me to be in Ramallah again. I thank His Excellency President Abbas and His Excellency Prime Minister Hamdallah for their warm welcome and hospitality. I was honored to receive the Grand Cordon Star of the State of Palestine. I thank the President and people of Palestine for this great recognition, which I accepted on behalf of all the dedicated women and men of the United Nations working for peace and dignity, social justice here and around the world. This is my 11th visit to Palestine as a Secretary General. I have been with you in times of great difficulties and conflict. I'm aware that many Palestinians question the feasibility of reaching a just and lasting peace with Israel. They hear talk of peace, but they see violence. They still live a life of checkpoints, permits, blockades, demolitions, and profound economic hardships. Faced with growing indignities and the humiliating occupation that will soon enter its 50th year, many are losing sight of the prospect of an independent Palestinian state, young people especially. Round after round of deadly unrest, the expansion of Israel's illegal settlement enterprise, and nearly a decade of internal division between Gaza and the West Bank have all carried a heavy price. I have come to the region many times when tensions erupted into escalating violence. Yet, we know that even in superficially quieter times, Palestinians and Israelis are still caught in a vicious cycle. This evening, I had a very moving meeting with the family of Mahmoud Badran, A 15-year-old boy tragically killed last week in an incident that once again raises questions about the appropriate use of force. Continuing violence, terrorism, and incitement are incompatible with advancing a negotiated two-state solution. I know that President Abbas remains committed to nonviolence, and I encourage the Palestinian leadership to act effectively, particularly against incitement, in order to help rebuild trust. In my meetings with President Abbas and Prime Minister Netanyahu, I heard commitments to a negotiated peace. I reminded both of them that the time for action is long overdue, and encouraged them to tangibly demonstrate this commitment and create the conditions for a return to meaningful negotiations. The two-state solution is the only viable option for sustainable peace in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier today, I visited Gaza. I was profoundly moved once again by the resilience of people in Gaza despite the wars and hardships. Reconstruction is encouraging, but must be accelerated and scaled up. I repeat my call on donors to fulfill their commitments. Long-term stability in Gaza cannot be achieved without two significant developments. First, reuniting Gaza and the West Bank under a single democratic and legitimate Palestinian authority based on PLO principle. Second, a full lifting of the closures on the Gaza Strip in line with the UN Security Council Resolution 1860, while respecting Israel's legitimate security concerns. I urge leaders in Gaza and the West Bank to deliver to the Palestinian people, at long last, an end to the issues that divide them and a commitment to strengthening the ties that bind. And of course, I was once again urge Palestinian and Israeli leaders to engage to bring a just, comprehensive, and enduring peace to the people of Israel and Palestine. As the Secretary General of the United Nations, I commit to working with the leaders and international community to advance all of these essential goals. Shukran jazilan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.